Welcome to Jim White's webinar series. Jim has been investing, coaching executives, and turning around companies for over 30 years. Now your host, Dr. Jim White.
Hello, this is Jim White. It is June 16, 2020. Welcome to part 6 of my critical thinking series. We're halfway through the series. You believe it? One half. We're at the midway point of our series. Let's do a quick review before we move into this week's session, shall we? Last week, we discussed what I call Critical Thinker 2, and we discussed the following elements. Seeing the big picture. We spent quite a bit of time in reviewing that. Seeing the big picture. And man, I don't know about you, but each and every day there's an opportunity for us as individuals and politicians and business leaders to open our eyes and see the big picture, right? So we got to continue to open our eyes to see the big picture. And other thing we discussed last week was objectivity, and using your emotions and being self-aware. This week, we're going to discuss 5 topics, and I'm going to do everything again to get this in within 30 minutes, right? 5 topics. Number 1, we're going to talk about evaluate information. We're going to talk about making assumptions. Boy, that is a big one, right? Making assumptions. And we're going to talk about what I call watch out for biases. Watch out for bias. We're going to talk about asking clarifying questions, and we're going to review a SWOT analysis and tell you the benefits, the pros of using a SWOT analysis, not only in your business, but also in your personal life, your career, and your family, etc. So those are the 5 things we're going to be talking about this evening. So let's get right to it. Number 1, evaluate information. A big challenge in the process of critical thinking is just how to evaluate the information that you're looking at. We have already looked at some steps in past sessions of evaluating information, and we referred to that, 2 or 3 sessions ago, logic, I believe it was, and logic. We're going to delve deeper into evaluation now. The best critical thinkers, now that's what we're talking about. The best critical thinkers are those people, and I love this quote from Winston Churchill. He noted, the critical thinkers are those people who are capable of gleaning through information that may be unclear or conflicted. That is a big deal. Capable of gleaning through information that may be unclear or conflicting information. That is a big, big deal. Again, you that know me, I'll use that word and overuse that word over and over and over. Now, let's move to number 2 on our topic for this evening. That is making assumptions. And I can go, wow, making assumptions. How many times has that come back to kind of bite us a little bit? So let's talk about it more. As I mentioned in previous sessions, we talked about self-awareness, right? It's a starting point from which we begin to think critically. We base our decisions on assumptions. We base all of our decisions on assumptions, and we make about our objects or things. Once again, we base our decision on assumptions. We make about objects or things. Base our decision on assumptions. We make about objects or things. Assumptions are the arguments, right? But the distinguishing feature of an assumption is that it is a statement in which no proof or evidence is provided. Now, that is a big deal worth repeating. Assumptions are the arguments, but the distinguishing feature of any assumption is that it is a statement in which no proof or evidence is provided. Assumptions can be either verbally stated or mentally held, unstated, if you will. Verbally stated or mentally unstated. Now, in most cases, they are unstated. They are unstated assumptions, unstated. Assumptions are often made in politics, right? We could go down the slippery slope on that one this evening, right? So we start talking about politics, but assumptions are often made in politics, and I often like to refer to it. If you with enough assumptions, any policy can be justified, right? So with enough assumptions, any policy can be justified, and often referred to that as say it often enough, and people are going to begin believe what you're saying, right? Now, assumptions. So we're going to move right into. We're moving right through this whole process this evening because I want to get down and maybe spend a little bit more time on SWOT. And as we move through this, as every session, I'd encourage you to have a pad and pen, even though we're recording this, so you can make some notes in the moment, if you will. And of course, at the conclusion of every session, we got some great, talented people that helps us produce these episodes each and every week that will take the webcast and then turn it into a blog post so you can have that material to refer to as well. So if we move into number 3 item of our topic this evening, and this one is probably going to hit home pretty hard this evening, and that watch out for the biases, right? Watch out for bias. Watch out for bias. Now, as we learned in the session on logic, confirmation bias can influence the inference we draw. Once again, confirmation bias can influence the inference we draw. Bias, well, I think we all know what it is, but so it's probably worth doing a little definition of it right now. It's prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another. It's a prejudice in favor of or against one thing, person, or group compared with another, usually in a way considered to be unfair. Well, as we know, we have so much that's going on in the United States today. All of the protests, which they have a right to do. What we don't have a right to do is to destroy property or inflict any other bodily harm on anyone else, but you certainly have a right to protest. Now, the bias is something that we probably will never completely eliminate. We can certainly give it a try, and I think we need to give it some serious attention. Being a Southern boy, born in Georgia and raised in South Carolina, it's something that I'm very familiar with. Is the bias and the prejudice that are held against certain groups, and which I have never bought into that, or nor do I agree with it. But it's something that, as human beings, we've got to continue to work on eliminating our biases and know that everybody is put on this planet and has a right to have equal opportunities, you will. Now, that's probably going to be a continuation of work for many, many years to come. But man, we need to get after it in the United States. We need to get past, and we need to get our politicians stepping up to the table. And you and I need to do more. We need to speak out in a nonviolent way. We need to make our voices known. We need to lead. We need to know that there's opportunity for everyone that wants to work and raise their family and live in a peaceful, loving, joyous way. So we need to watch out for the confirmation bias. We need to watch out for the confirmation bias. We should ensure that we don't allow, let me put it this way, we should ensure that we don't allow our preconceived opinions to influence the way we evaluate data. In other words, with preconceived opinions, we got to make sure that we do not allow our preconceptions to, in a way to, we evaluate data to a degree that we're going to use that data to confirm what we already believe, right? I hope that's making sense. We cannot allow that to have preconceived opinions to influence the way that we evaluate data to the degree that we use the data to confirm what we already believe, right? We can use objectivity. Last week's session, right? We can use objectivity to oppose the bias. We can. We're better than what is occurring in the United States. We're just better. We can do better. Now, people commonly have difficulty reasoning and thinking critically when information goes against what we previously believed, right? You know, once again, I'm going to say that again. People commonly have difficulty reasoning and thinking critically when information goes against what we previously believed as true. As true. We can see this situation happen in political debates and societal opinions. What other examples can we think of that preconceived or biases? And I know I'm going to, I'm trying to thread a real close needle this evening, but I would be remiss if I said there's two words that that really bothers me is all of the preconceived biases that we have and the careless nature in which George Floyd was treated and lost his life. That is, we're better. We're better. We're better than that. We got to be better than that. Now, so in the United States, like I said, we're better. Moving ahead here before I continue to get myself in too much trouble, let's look at asking clarifying questions. Clarifying questions is a big deal. It is a skill. It is a unique skill set. Now, I addressed in an earlier session about asking the right questions. Remember that? Talking about asking the right questions and how important it was to be able to ask the right questions. Equally important is to ask clarifying questions when making decisions. Clarifying questions. I cannot tell you, learning this skill set in your critical thinking journey is going to serve you well. Being able to ask clarifying questions, right? Clarifying questions. And that is a skill that I know, especially a lot of public speakers, facilitators, commentators, lawyers, in some cases, they're taught, follow up, ask questions, clarifying questions, and that is so important. Clarifying questions are thought provoking. That's what they're designed to do. They're thought provoking questions and help the thinker acquire more information. Thought provoking, and it's going to help the thinker acquire more information. Now, types of questions, I'll put it that way, can be either generic or very specific. Generic or very specific. So, generic or specific. With clarifying questions, now this is a big deal. With clarifying questions, you can expect other questions to arise out of the answers you receive. And that's the beauty about this process and this whole critical thinking process. That's what And that's what we spent the last 6 weeks, if you will, getting to this point, and now we're to the thing. Oh, right. Ask the right question. Don't assume anything. Don't let your preconceived ideas force you. I'm going to use the word force you to ignore the data, the assumptions, and the bias. All of these things it's just so critical, in my opinion. And of course, I'm favored to my own topic here, but it is absolutely critical that we learn how to ask clarifying questions. Now, critical thinking skills are very important, and I decided to probably go down this route. And I'm going to use the word student, and I'm going to use that generically because I think I've shared I'm 71 years old, going on 28, and and I love. I'm a continuous learner. I am a student. I get up every day and I'm curious. That was one of our topics, right? Curiosity, right? I was curious, and I'm always a student. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to see how I can improve my skill sets. I'm always trying to learn. So critical thinking skills are very important in preparing students for their future. So now we can talk about the students as a parent, newborn, and as they start becoming of age and they start going to school, start that journey on their education. And that's one topic that I know that public education today is encouraging or working in the curriculum, is to be able to get people to understand the importance of critical thinking skills. And it's really, really important to be able to have that capability. You know, a lot of students will get into college, and you've often heard people say, "Well, I wasn't ready for college. I didn't have the tool set. I didn't have the toolkits, but and to be ready." And I see that play out over and over and over. I also see that play out for young people, leaving higher education and entering the workforce, where they're not really prepared, especially in this critical thinking area. They may be prepared for great scientists or great engineers, for example, but they're really not equipped in most cases that we find for this critical thinking process, right? Critical thinking, and the same, and this is the same in a lot of our organizations, a lot of the companies I have the honor to lead and the pleasure to lead. What I find, we got a lot of employees, for example, that's been in the same job for a number of years, and they become complacent, and they stop learning. They shut down. They think they've made it. I'm here to tell you, you are never through. You're never through learning. It just depends on exactly what you want out of your life, and that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about as we move into number 4. We start talking about SWOT analysis and how you can use that, right? So critical thinking. Now, the last piece, SWOT analysis, I love this. And if you have a pad of paper, what I'd like you to do right now is just right in the center of the paper, just draw a line, and then just draw another horizontal line. And the left-hand side, put an S, and right, put a W, and then put an O, and put a T. So I'm going to break this down this way, because not only is this a methodology that we use in our businesses, but it's also a methodology that we can use throughout our life. I used to use this process with my 2 boys, and where I would come down and I would start, and I said, okay, what is your strength, right? And then over here, and I use the word weakness, and sometimes I will wordsmith that a little bit, and because I don't want to be so far, especially if you're talking about a 6th grader, right? You want to be a little, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit more delicate on that. But for our session this evening, I really want you to understand how you can use this to your advantage, right? So SWOT analysis, and like I said, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And as I said, we've used these type of analysis to be more objective thinkers. That's what we're doing. We use this to become more objective thinkers. Now, a SWOT allows us to think cleanly. I like that word, think cleanly and clearly. That's what the SWOT analysis is designed to do. And it allows you to form a logical point of view, a logical point of view. It is very helpful, as I said, in business and in marketing situation and crisis situations, and like I said, in your career, when you're taking a look at your career assessment, doing a career assessment, if you want to be very objective with yourself, is to use this methodology. Strengths and weaknesses, I'm going to say, is regarded as an internal factor. Okay, and bear with me, just hang on, I'll pull it together. While opportunities and threats are regarded as external factors, right? So strengths and weakness kind of internal view. Opportunities and threats is external. It's like opportunity you see it out in the threat, and what out in the workplace or out in the world, it may be an opportunity you have, may be a threat that you may be facing, right? Some samples, I'm going to give you a few samples here a little bit more, and I'm going to use it from an organizational perspective, right? For example, if I'm doing a SWOT analysis, I may say internal environment examples. I could say that strengths that we will have will be their pricing, could be our product, could be our cost, or performance. Like I said, these factors tend to be present. That's the present. What's good, right? So we could use all of that for as the strengths and the weak. Opportunities and threats, like I said, is outside of the company organization, the external environment. Some of the examples of that would be your audience, the economy, a pandemic, all of these different things are threats. And at the same time, where they're a threat, they can also turn into an opportunity as well. Now, those factors tend to be in the future. They've been in the future. So this exercise is a huge exercise. It is a big deal. So once again, what we went over this evening, these 5 things, I'm just going to recap them for you. I want to recap them. And that's what I'm going to do here. And I made some notes here on the side. If you see my eyes going over that way, I made some notes on the side there, and because I just want to make sure that I remember them in order, because I get in a row here and it just starts flowing. So this evening we talked about as a critical thinker, to learn how to evaluate the information. We talked about making an assumption. We talked about watch out for the bias. We talked about ask clarifying questions, and we talked about the SWOT analysis, right? Now, next week we're going to continue the process, and we're going to continue to move through the process, and we're going to drill down, and that's probably be a little longer session next week. But I'm trying to keep these sessions within the 30-minute mark. We're going to be talking about the benefits of critical thinking. We're going to talk about how you become more persuasive, and we're going to talk about better communication. For a lot of people have an opportunity to work with me and my staff. They understand that I have a thing I call 7 C's of communication. We'll probably even add that in. And then we're going to talk about better problem solving. I think I mentioned in our session, a couple sessions ago, about a process that I developed, which I call team consulting, which is a timed, very controlled event. We will revisit that a little bit. And then we're going to dig deep into increased emotional intelligence. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more. So please do not miss next week. And for now, that's all I have. And I hope these sessions, as they continue to come together, I hope they're helping you. And so our whole intent is to be able to give you content that you can actually go use in your professional life and your personal life as well. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your participation. We really appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out PhDopportunityfund.com and take a look at that fantastic project that we are undertaking in Salinas, California. You might want to do that. So again, thank you for your time, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good evening.
Thank you for your participation and interest in Jim White's webinar series. To stay in touch with Jim, go to www.authorjimwhite.com.